Hello, Sadie. So thank you so much for coming on to the Everyday Mystic.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
It's so good to see you. It's been a while since moving from Portland and moving all around the world. What I have, well, not around the world. I've been moving around the United States, but what I've has warmed my heart. Every new city I've come into, settled into over the last 3 years, I'll spot a bar three in a neighborhood and go, ooh, look, it's there's a bar three, and it's always in the most beautiful and just nicest parts of town. So it feels like a piece of Portland, and certainly a piece of you that I get to experience around the country. It's been neat.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love hearing that. That's a sentiment that's echoed throughout our community. We hear people move into a new town and find their home at bar three again. And it's a really kind of a unexpected benefit that we have. I didn't really think about that when we decided to open many locations, but it feels good to know that we create a sense of place and home for people.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, how familiar. I mean, it's like the healthy version of people seeing a McDonald's, I guess, in somewhere where, they're traveling and they're like, oh, thank goodness I can get a Big Mac or whatever they sell. Right? To have that brand recognition, have that sense of community and home for people as they move. People are so much more mobile these days than they ever were, probably, in our parents' generation, where they just stayed in their town and they, raised their kids and then they never left. People now are moving for jobs, moving because they can, they're working remotely and they can just move anywhere. So you have to have that ability to reconnect into your wellness space and in this place that you know so well, and have it be different but the same. It's probably it's huge for people. So I want you to share a little bit with the listeners about some of these early, you launched in Portland, and now, like you said, you've got these studios all over. How many studios are you up to now?
We have 170.
Wow.
Yeah, all owned and operated by women. I own 6 of them. As you mentioned, 5 of them are in Portland. 1 is in the West Village, and the rest are franchised. And all of our, it's an owner operated model. So the women who run the studios are in the studios. And I think that's why it does feel like home. If you go to my studio versus Washington, DC studio, that a woman's behind it, running it, caring about the same core values that I care about. And so there's that continuity that's really important to us.
What are your core values at Bar 3?
It starts with stronger together. And that's the idea. In fitness, often how the core value kind of started and it's grown and blossomed, but is fitness traditionally was sort of a guru model where you followed one sort of spectacular athlete or fitness person and what they did to get fit. And I, over my years in the fitness industry, realized that model doesn't serve most people, and that a stronger model and more related to who I am is this idea of collective wisdom, that every single client informs the experience of Bar 3 and the wisdom of Bar 3. Every instructor, every play lounge worker, every owner brings their unique contribution. And because of that, we become stronger as a collective, as a brand, as a product, but also as a movement towards body positivity. So it starts with stronger together, then practice authenticity. And that is really about a practice of remembering who we are and what our bodies need in the moment versus trying to shape and mold our bodies into something that isn't us to belong, to be sexy, to be worthy, to be achieving, to be successful. Again, another core thing that I think is broken in the industry and doesn't serve people is a motivation to be something other than we are. So we practice that in our bodies, in the studios, but also in our lives at Bar 3. And then give generously. And that's about just almost like the trust fall of just knowing that when you give out generously, there's just a reciprocation that happens. Giving of ourselves generously is we are a service-based model. So when we walk into that studio, we are serving other people. And so that core value is very important to the success of our organization. A love of learning is about growth mindset, not being rigid, not being stuck in one heritage, one mode, but deeply curious, and always learning and evolving to meet people where they are in that moment. Mm-hmm. And then to teach that fun curiosity in your body too. When you take a bar 3 class, you'll feel the love of learning right from minute 1, because we always say things like, hey, yeah, I'm your bar 3 instructor, but you are your own best teacher. You're going to learn through this class what your body needs. Mm-hmm. So love of learning, make it happen. And that's about, you can sit there and analyze yourself forever and ever and ever. But it's really important to now put action to that authenticity, to mm-hmm. move out in the world and make choices that are maybe out of your comfort zone, but are a true signal of progress. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I think those are all of them.
And, that's so true that oftentimes people are in their heads, right? I mean, we spend so much time in our heads, overthinking things, thinking and analyzing and breaking down, whether that's thinking about ourselves or just thinking about our work or the world, our families, and, carving out time, whether it's an hour or more, to just spend some time in your body mm-hmm. and not, to get out of your mind is such a gift.
It really is. It really is. And it translates into your life too. The practice of not being in your head, but truly being in your body and trusting your body and moving in a way that is authentic to your body. It's a practice of self-love and compassion for your body, for one thing, and respect for your body. But I think it also is a metaphor for learning to move into the world that way and to make choices in the world that way that are authentic to what you really need and what really serves you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I love about, any type of embodiment practice, whether it's, an exercise practice or breath work or, just taking a walk even, and kind of just focusing on how that feels being in your body, that when you spend some time there, you are energizing these long forgotten places. And sometimes one of the only times I've ever cried while exercising was in a yoga class, because I was in this particular posture and then just like tears started pouring out of my eyes. And I was accessing these deep and forgotten emotions that I had stored away. Mm-hmm. And so connecting to our bodies can be, such a powerful way to just spur action in our lives. Because for me, that was like, oh, I need to address this thing. I need to actually bring that up into my mind and start thinking about dealing with it so that I can move on and I don't, cry when I do yoga.
Right. Those moments are so beautiful, though. That's such a gift. We hear that a lot. Specifically, there was an uptick in tears after COVID. And I think when we all were still in our homes, and then went out to the studio and started moving again, like so much came out, right? Mm. I like the phrase motion creates emotion.
Yes.
And just like releasing the tears, and it's just such a beautiful moment. Yeah, I treasure those moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's a connection that, again, a gift to have, because we so often will spend time, but also I think honor more of the energy and the activity of the mind. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff that gets, the awards, and it gets you the promotions, and it gets you, the success markers in the world. When you're up here, we're not necessarily honoring as much in our society that experience of the body. So I love that your company and your practice and you as a person are honoring that in the world and providing that for people.
Yeah, I think a practice of stillness and being honest is so important, and that can be our measure of success. We can redefine what success means. I was talking to my daughter she's a freshman in college, and she had a little stint where she just couldn't get out of bed. And she's just, and we were talking about it. And I said, look out, she's in Denver. I'm like, look out your window. What does that tree look like? She's like, well, it's just a tree. And I said, well, what is it? No, explain it to me. And she's like, it's just branches. There's like ice on it and snow. And I'm like, it's really still, right? And it's just bare and not moving, right? Can you imagine if you told that tree right now to explode with leaves and flowers? Like, go, like bloom, grow, like be awesome, right? It's not natural. It's not natural. And like, I heard a podcast, I forget her name, an author, I think their name, I'm not sure their pronouns, but it's called Wintering. And it's all about that idea of like, it's okay to be still and to not bloom and to not have leaves on your tree all the time. And that, you know, I think we can learn so much from that, of just the honesty of accepting whatever is happening for you and your body in that moment. And then all of a sudden, you know, you release the shame, things work out. And just like a tree, eventually you do start to like blossom and move and grow and do all the things that our society is excited about.
Right. Yeah. I know we have so much to learn from nature, just follow, you know, and not necessarily following the seasons to a T, but understanding that we have seasons. And even, you know, for women, I just had a woman on the pod. It hasn't released yet, but we talked all about periods. She has a company where that sends, it's a sacred period box. It's a kit that gets sent to or can be gifted to young women before their periods. And it has all these beautiful products in it to help usher them into womanhood, to help destigmatize periods. And we talked a lot about the sacred feminine and, you know, how even within our menstrual cycle, we often aren't honoring the days, right? The days that we have where you're just like, I just need to lay with some tea in bed and I can't play pickleball today because my body is like not, you know, producing that kind of energy, and I just need to be still and I need to be in this moment. Honestly, I think it's like we were talking about earlier about those tears being a gift. The menstrual cycle is such a gift to women and to having something that's so viscerally physical that it sometimes forces you into being still and being present and being quiet, you know, because of maybe pain or just discomfort. But I think that's a beautiful gift.
Yeah. And I think another way to think about that is it's a gift of noticing. Like women's menstrual cycle is such a physical knocking on the door. Like, notice me, you know, listen to your body, right? And I think that is such a gift, is just noticing. And that translates beyond menstrual cycle to like moments when, you know, you feel like you're breathing in your chest shallowly, kind of like panting, like notice that, right? And that's a sign that, you know, your stress levels are high, or a foggy sensation behind your eyes, or, oh, wow, I feel really relaxed and calm right now. And just starting to notice how the body is reacting to the environment. It's a really powerful way to start to then take action to create an environment where you feel more alive and full and whole and happy, is really important. I think a lot of us shove that down and we don't notice it. We don't take it too seriously. And the menstrual cycle is like, you can't not notice it. Like,
right. Yeah. Good luck trying to ignore that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed in, you know, your classes, bar 3 classes, or some slower yin yoga classes, and just practices that are about noticing, really. I guess we can just sum it up that way. That I really personally shunned those kinds of practices in my earlier days. I was all about Ashtanga and flow yoga and hiking, like lots of like physical stress and strain and strenuousness and movement and fast movement. I walk really fast, just in general, my body. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to get into this practice of slowing down. Mm-hmm. And so even my exercise was matching that rigor of movement. And I'll be honest, like the first time I ever took like a bar 3 or bar 3 style class was like, it was annoying to me. I was like, ugh, I don't like holding all these things. They're just like stopping and not, flowing. And that was a great lesson for me that, this is about like actually paying attention and what's going on.
And that is deeply challenging. And I think it can be more challenging for many of us and more results oriented for many of us to slow down and be still and to feel the burn in the muscle, acknowledge it and sit in it, right? Mm-hmm. And just notice it and let it build and build and build. Whereas if you're distracted in your mind, you don't do that. And there's a comfort in that, even though it might seem more strenuous, like you're sweating more, but you're not paying attention quite as much. I will put in a plug though for noticing practice with vigor. So, you can I'm the same exact way. I'm a fast walker. We should go on a walk. I'm a fast walker. Like I just want to get there. It just feels where my body is. And I love vigor. I love challenge. And it's really exciting to put a practice of presence into those modalities. And so one way to do that is if you're like a trail runner, let's say, is while you're running, just in your head, say everything you notice. I notice that tree. I notice my foot. I notice an itch on my back. I notice, the breeze on my face. I notice the smell of pine. I notice, and just note, I'm literally saying, I notice, I notice, I notice, I notice. And you can tear up that trail run while being present. And what you might notice afterwards is almost a feeling of euphoria because you gave your thinking mind a break in a way. You drove your awareness to presence, which is deeply rejuvenating. It's been proven you can problem solve better, deal with conflict better after that, metabolize food better, sleep better. It's so healthy to drive our awareness towards the present moment. Where, and there's nothing wrong with it, but, I know I'll do this. I'll listen to a podcast during a whole walk because I'm such an achiever. I'm like, well, I'm going to learn and walk. Right. Right. Or I'll really get in my head trying to like problem solve, while I'm on a walk or a hike or something. And that's okay too. It's just notice that it's a different outcome.
It's a different type of going within, right? Mm-hmm. A different type of connection. And, that kind of mindfulness in action is as valuable as stillful or, still meditations or still mindfulness. I think there is that misconception that people need to get completely still, not move, not think, just empty themselves in order to connect. And we can be mindful in so many other ways, just like you mentioned. And I love that practice of saying, I notice. That's beautiful. I do that when it comes to meditation because the same thing. Yeah. I used to not be able to meditate, quote unquote, because I thought you just had to sit and lay and be still and empty the mind. So I would find other ways to meditate, and I would do that kind of meditative hiking or meditative cooking. And there's so many ways that you can get into that flow and then that inner connection. And now I can meditate just by sitting and like emptying and being in that state as well. But for those who are listening who think, I'll never be that person. I'll never be the person who can like sit down or lay down and just empty their mind of thoughts and be able to just lay there and breathe. I'm going to want to jump up or it's annoying and itchy for me. Know that there's so many other paths to that stillness or that connection, and that maybe someday it will lead you to that place where you can be just be by yourself and with your, just in a state of stillness, or sitting in the woods, not running through the woods necessarily.
Right. I've rarely met anybody who thinks they are the sitting and emptying the mind person. I'm just sitting here trying to think if I've ever met someone who says, oh yeah, I'm that person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so deeply human to want to bounce out of the bed and not stay and do the breath work, or to do, because we've been brought up in a culture of doing. So I think I also find that comforting, that we're all, almost every single one of us, universally think we're not the type to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more about redefining it, like you were saying, and getting out of your comfort zone, because it is uncomfortable to be still and to notice. But just enough, right? Just enough so that you can start to see, and then notice how that affected your sleep that day, your connection with other people. More for me, it's like my inner critic, how it affected that. Like when I sit still, it's such a practice of self-love at this point. And that serves me all the time. Like, it's just like, fuel for my day. So yeah, I think I've never met anyone that's like, oh, I love emptying my mind and sitting still naturally.
Yeah. It's the things that create some discomfort for us, whether it's sitting or, taking on a new challenge, I think are such great things to notice. Like, where is this discomfort coming from? Why can't I sit still? Or why do I want to avoid that conversation? Or why is this thing, whatever it is, making me uncomfortable? And it's such a great practice of self-awareness and self-examination to be like, okay, well, I think those kinds of conversations challenge me because, why? And it's just starting to ask yourselves and having those inner conversations. So I know that you are very self-aware and that you practice a lot of self-awareness. In those practices, is there a lot of self-talk going on?
Yes, for sure. I would say the biggest, eye-opening unlocking that I've ever had was, and it's been a process, it's been like maybe, I don't know, 7 years of really investigating this. And it started with my friend, Kristen Fritz. She has, I think it's called Dharma Laundry. You can look her up, Kristen Fritz. And she has this little Dharma school. She does a retreat that's really beautiful here in Portland with Andrea Lita. But a long time ago, she said to me, there's equal purpose in darkness as there is in enlightenment. And that just stuck with me. I was like, whoa, can you say that again? Can you explain that a little more? And over time, I've really learned to not run from the discomfort, the shadow, the dark side of myself. So if I'm jealous, if I'm fearful, if I'm disappointed, angry, those feelings that just, that's the stuff that's harder for me to get rid of. Or if someone criticizes me, like on social media or something, someone just did that. They DM'd me and told me I posted a picture of me to show my Beyond Yoga outfit. And she was telling me, she said, tisk, tisk, you're using your traps instead of your lats and your hip is way out of alignment or something like that. And I kid you not, like I sat there, I stewed on that. It is so stupid,
Yeah.
But the thing is, I can't run. I need to sit with that. Like, what was that? Like, and just really sit with the discomfort of not performing well, not doing it right, feeling like an imposter. Also, that was mean. How could she do that? Like, and just really, really sit there with it. Because there's always like a doorway into something I need to learn about myself in that moment. And it's such a deep disservice to not honor it and not, sit with it, not run with it and not try to solve it, make it go away. Just truly remember what Kristen said is there's equal purpose in this feeling right now. as when you feel like you're really crushing it or you're in flow state and everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that goes back to the whole noticing thing. It's like, even in my body, like even talking about it right now, I feel my chest kind of tightening. It almost like hurts my heart, to be honest. And I have to just soften and listen and like hold my heart and be okay in that moment, as trivial as it sounds.
Yeah. Oh, it's so not though. Those things are the things to notice. And I think that we spend so much time distracting ourselves because we don't want to feel that discomfort, right? So it's just like another thing to anesthetize the discomfort of life. I mean, there are a lot of discomforts, whether it's those types of social exchanges and human to human stuff. I actually read this really fascinating book called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's written like it's one of those types of books that shares a philosophy, but through, the telling of a parable, a story of, this person goes to this, they find this teacher, and then it goes through all the lessons. And it's a fascinating book, but in it, the main tenet is that all problems are interpersonal problems. And at first you read it and you're like, oh, well, that's not true. I have this problem with myself that's a blah, blah, blah. But actually, oh no, that stemmed from, my parent telling me that thing about me, right? That it started as this interpersonal thing. And so you start to like follow those threads for all the things that you feel, and you're like, ooh, there is this connection with another person there. It's pretty fascinating.
It's so true. Through my therapy, I've learned that the unwinding, to go back in our story as early as we possibly can and figure out like when, why did I want to be on the stage in kindergarten? What was the root of that, or, whatever it was. I'm really understanding that side of myself, or about exchange, or feeling abandoned, understanding that unwinds the future. Like it does. I think if we don't go back and solve those problems for ourselves when we were little, they recreate over and over in our subconscious, or maybe we somehow attract them back into our lives. I really believe that. But if we go back into the core, and it's the inner child work, like go back and hold that little girl who needed to be on a stage because she wasn't seen in her home, right? Like, and remind her, oh, you're so seen and loved. You're good. Like, you don't need to be on a stage to belong. Like, you belong, you're awesome, and that kind of work helps I just feel like it unwinds everything.
Yeah. And it's so important. I mean, you're doing this for yourself. You're doing this for your children. You're doing it also for your company, and for the mission and the values that each person that connects to you as a studio owner, franchise owner, every student that comes, because there's no way that what you just described and are doing doesn't infuse into the core of the company, right? So that's so powerful that you have taken, and you're such a great example of, being a soulful CEO, or a conscious leader and a conscious CEO in that way, that you're doing the work. You're not just like sitting on high and going, okay, let me dispense this knowledge and this wisdom down to you all. It's like you're in the trenches doing the work. And then, and so it's no surprise that all of that gets infused into each of your studios and students.
Well, it's really a core value. It's the growth mindset, love of learning, all the things, all the values we started this call with. We have a company of people that are doing the work. Like, it is a core value to be self-aware. Practice authenticity is about a practice of self-awareness. And so that is something, when we upstream figure out, putting together our teams, do we all share in these values? If you don't share in the values, you're not going to thrive at bar 3, because it's who we are. Like, it's where we grow. It's where we innovate. And it's our purpose. And so, I think, it does I guess it started with me and Chris just because we started it, but now it's just grown into this amazing group of humans that are all on their individual discoveries, figuring things out. With this idea of, oh, wow, if we can all unlock this way, there's more joy and honesty in life, whether it's at work or in our bodies, in the classroom, it's all kind of the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we all, most of us spend so much time at work or working that to have a place where you can also be working on your human and, and delving deep into your personal development work while at work, is a gift.
And there's boundaries. We don't talk about like our deepest, darkest secrets or anything around the boardroom. I probably did at one point because I was, a baby Sadie trying to figure shit out. But now it's with safety, right? There's a container, but we do things around discovering our true motivations. One of my favorite, sort of like a strength finder we did, was CVI. It's the Core Values Index. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most profound things we've done as a team. And we had an executive coach come in, Dan Cox, and guide the whole organization in this. And it's really discovering through a lot of analysis what your core authentic motivation is in the world. And then kind of owning that and making sure that your career choice isn't congruent with that. I think so many of us try to play on our weaknesses, and we spend all this energy trying to be another thing because we think that's what we should be or whatever. And that's really defeating, right? And way more energy. It takes 10 times more time to do something well that you're not innately good at or motivated to be good at, even more importantly. So that's that. It's the first step of like, oh, that's who I am. So I need to make sure I'm not in the room for that conversation because it's not authentic to who I am, right? Mm-hmm. And that the right people are. But even more importantly, I think it's for us as a team respecting each other. Like my core team, we are one of each category. There's 4 categories. It's the banker, the merchant, the builder, and the innovator. And the 4 leaders that run Bar 3 are each of those things. So we're wildly different. And I'm a merchant, which another way is we are more visionary. We lead with our hearts. We have imagination. We see into the future. We're very colorful. We're very, we always want to bring our heart into conversation. My CFO is a banker. He's very literal, grounded, and his whole thing is knowledge. He wants to see the data, right? It makes sense. The numbers. And he can't even understand why I'm imagining something in the future, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, what a stick in the mud. Why are you talking to me about what we can't do right now? Right? Yeah. But we have learned to deeply respect each other, and our chemistry is so powerful. And I think a lot of us in the workplace specifically, we judge each other because we're not the same, instead of tapping into each other because we're different. And that collective wisdom, stronger together, is what creates workplace awesomeness, innovation, problem solving, joy, and that's an example of an active practice I brought into the workplace that fits. And it's great because people know once I figure out what my motivation is, now I can design a career around something that is going to authentically enrich my life.
Mm-hmm. And core values are so universal that you can find and meet and serve those values in so many different ways. I think I was just talking about this because, I'm a public speaker, teach public speaking workshops, and I love helping people feel confident and comfortable speaking in front of groups and in front of audiences. And so I was just talking about this earlier about how finding, and understanding that, your motivation here, the value that you hold may not be the exact thing that you are talking about. So in this realm of public speaking, maybe the topic itself is not a passionate topic for you, or you don't, it's boring to you, or whatever it might be. But if one of your core values is that you need to be passionate about something and to actually feel confident and comfortable doing it, then what can you find passion in the act of doing the speaking? Is it that you are going to be helping others transform, or is it because you're going to be through that sharing of knowledge that might be boring, you're going to help, lift someone else up, or, so it's like you can still find and meet your value in so many different ways.
So it doesn't have to be literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But knowing that about yourself and then connecting to each other and knowing those things about your teammates and your colleagues is so valuable, because you know what turns them on, lights them up, and you can help even instill that for each other and also honor each other. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really great. It's just built so much respect. And I think we say these things a lot, but actually, again, putting it into action, like over the years, I know in my head, like it's so important for the team to feel seen and heard. Mm-hmm. Right? Seen and heard, just like raising children. Children need to be seen and heard and delighted in, right? Mm-hmm. And we need to be inconvenienced by them. That's like the art of being a parent or the art of being a leader. Like, it's not always easy, but something like the Core Values Index or the other things we've done like that is an exercise and an active practice in seeing Michael as the banker, seeing Anna as the innovator. She asks a ton of questions. And then Hannah as my builder, who just doesn't want to maybe problem solve so much. She just wants to get things done. Right? And then Harper, who's like me, she's the merchant. She's it's just knowing that they're seen and validated, and then their respective teams are as well. It's just like the soul of a company. It feels good no matter. And we have a really, kind of a very, like, we got the feels at Bar 3, like just the brand and the organization. But to your point, we could be working for, I don't know, PG&E or, Clorox headquarters. If they have the same, like, I don't know why I thought of Clorox, but it just sounded kind of boring. But a boring brand, let's say, but that has that kind of heart and soul. It doesn't matter. You can still thrive. You can still feel alive and enriched.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for the most quote unquote boring, and I won't name any industries necessarily, but we all know what we all have an idea of that that's popping up in our own minds. But within those industries, within those jobs, you can find, even if it's your own personal, maybe your whole team is not on board and you don't have that, everybody, because it's not coming from any place of where, that's an instilled value to connect in that way. But even for yourself, to be able to find joy and deeper meaning and having a higher purpose with this thing that you're doing, sweeping floors or around, punching numbers or something that you may not be. And I so excited and passionate about. I think that's an important element of really finding that true joy in life, because life doesn't always serve you the dream job or right. You can find, however, that deep meaning in something that may not be in what your vision is of the.
Yeah. And I learned the dream job doesn't make me happy. I have my dream job, but I wasn't happy for years. And what I lost was my core values around the dream job and who I was within my own organization. I was just we just did a women's networking event for National Women's Day, I think it was, with Portland Business Journal. And my table was about core values. And I was telling them, I started Bar 3 in 2008 with a very clear core value around work-life balance and around raising my children and creating my career self around honoring my home self and my desire to be a nurturing kind of mothering home body, if you will. And I got so intoxicated as Bar 3 started to fly. I got so intoxicated with success and achievement and accolades and being on stages and traveling. And I was addicted to it almost, but it was not congruent with my core value. And so I would sit there at night. I remember I'm like, what am I looking for? What am I searching for? I am so not happy, even though I'm checking all the boxes and I have the dream job and I have the things and I just bought the house and my kids get to go to a good school now. And like, why am I so depleted? And it was because I wasn't forming my company around my core value anymore, around work-life balance. And when I got back to that, it took me a minute, I hired the amazing executive team that we have, and that's been a process, who can run the day-to-day business while I have more balance for what is right for me. I had choice in that moment. I didn't think I had choice. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of other people have a different core value. Like around our table, other people had complete power as a core value, or fame, or, you can have other core values that are authentic to you.
Right.
That just happened to be mine that I sort of lost along the way and then picked back up.
Fished it back in. Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully you knew that and I had identified it, because you could have probably spent many, many more years, because you had never discovered that, just going, why am I so unhappy? I have it all. I have the dream. And, yeah. And I think that's why these practices of self-awareness and self-reflection and going in and getting to know our inner self and then, being introduced to our higher self, of where we get this guidance from a wiser part of who we are to show us the way and guide us back to the path, when you get a little lost like that.
The return, coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's yourself is always there, right? That higher self, that inner knowing is always there for you. And I think that's, even if you feel like you're lost in the woods, or, that you've lost your way, getting back to that center is always an opportunity that's always there. So tell us, like, I know you said it was a long road back, but what were some of the things that you did to kind of get back to that, and get back to yourself?
I think things just sort of started coming to me. Like, I'd pick up a book and it would, I think a lot of it was learning and the first step was curiosity. Like, why am I not totally happy right now? What am I searching for? Like, I remember being on Facebook at night, one night, I had all these little mini ahas, right, along the way. They're like these little moments that really shifted things for me. I remember being on Facebook one night. Like, I fed the kids, they were in bed. It was like lovely. Chris had a fire going and I was on Facebook, and I literally said out loud, what am I searching for? What am I looking for? Like, why aren't I completely content right now, curled up on the couch with my dog, like by the fire? Like, I just was not content in myself, in my life, in my body. And it was like, oh, I'm curious about that. Like, why am I not, I remember I had a very vivid moment where I was sitting outside with my son, and a butterfly came in and landed on a plant right by him. And I just had this moment of, I always wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to be a CEO. Like, what am I promptly booked a vacation with just the two of us to go to Alaska. And I canceled all my meetings. I was like, I need to be with my son. Like, whoa, And so I'd have these little moments. And then, so it started with curiosity. Then it's, okay, put that curiosity to practice. I need help. And that was, then seeking out outside folks to help guide me. So therapist, love my therapist. Retreats, going to retreats, like I mentioned, Kristen Fritz, reading a book, calling the author. I wish I could remember this book, because she's an author in Bend, Oregon. It's something around intuition.
So if you remember it, I'll put it in the show notes.
Thank you.
You can email me.
But I remember I read her book and I was like, oh my gosh. So I called her and I just connected with her. Like, just like finding coaches, and doing my own work, finding, discovering meditation, the art of slowing down. And I would say I'm 50 now. I did that for 10 years. 40 to 50 was all about figuring it out. And at this point, my word for the year is flourish. Not, I just want to live fully into things and put it to practice a little more versus kind of reading it, thinking it, analyzing it. It's really about putting it into motion more now for myself, and figuring it all out.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And what a great path that you've just shared that anybody can follow, of just getting curious, asking yourself these questions of, why am I not satisfied? Why am I unhappy? Why am I this? Why am I that? What? Just starting to get curious about the self rather than accepting that this is it. Okay, I guess I have to live with this. I mean, we have to live within the confines of our own current mindset. We can.
But I think it's interesting because I think the other word is compassion and courage. So because it's curious first, oh, why, what am I searching for? But then the compassion part's important, and it's not accepting, but being compassionate that you're honestly not happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the compassion part. Otherwise we beat ourselves up, because my dialogue was, who am I to be unhappy right now? What is wrong with
me? You're like, I have it all. What?
Yeah. And I think a lot of us do that. We beat ourselves up for the inner critic. Why am I, or like the habits that we form versus giving ourselves love around those habits. Oh, I'm searching for something else. I'm trying to feed my soul because I'm not fulfilled right now, and that's okay. And then the courage part is being courageous and making change.
Yeah. It's, I think it's fascinating that, and I talk about this, that, I've written about this, that it can be on both of these extreme ends of the spectrum, that it can be have it all and feel like exactly what you described, or have lost it all or don't have it all and feel exactly the same way, and beating yourself up for, well, how could I let myself get to this point? How could I, how could I have lost it all, or how could I be, an alcoholic on the streets? And I mean, at both ends of these spectrums, it is that, right, that lack of compassion and so much shame that doesn't need to be there. And when we start to fill up our own well, being loving to ourselves, compassionate for where we are, and starting from that point, wherever that point is for somebody, to then, like you said, go and seek some answers. If you don't have them all within, seek outside of you. There's so many sources of information and help and support, and reaching out, and not being embarrassed to, or too shameful to do that.
We heal in community. It's really hard to be alone in this stuff. Yeah. I've learned that. Like, it's so great to have people to give yourself permission to be helped. It's a gift, and it works. I mean, and there's people like you that like live for this, right? That just, they want to help you. That is their calling. That is who they are, and are truly gifted at it. I'm so thankful for the people in my life, the teachers in my life, who have helped me unlock myself and figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. We are and can be that for people in our lives, even if you're not doing it professionally, you do it for your colleagues and your children, and others can, maybe do it for, just a stranger that they meet on the streets. And, as we fill the well, and as we get more in tune with our own selves, the more we can be there externally for others, and connect to others. So it's a virtuous cycle, right? We might be getting that help from others, but it fills us so that we can then give that help, and, become so much more connected to humanity and the energy all around us, both in taking it and giving it. And it feels like it makes it all worthwhile.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what's next for you, Sadie? You said you're 50 now. You've got this booming and successful company, and your kids you've got some in college. Do you have some things on the horizon?
I think it's just, no, like I don't have any major like moves I'm making, which is like, I just being present in the moment, appreciate where I'm in. It feels really good right now. You know, when you go through something really, really hard, again, that's that darkness, right? The beauty of that is when you come through the portal of hardness, everything that is good is so much better and so much brighter and so much more fulfilling. And our studios, I mean, we had to shut all our doors. I mean, it was dicey and hard work. And we are coming through a recovery now. Our classes are full. We have wait lists. There's just this sense of like the phoenix rising right now. And we're just elated. We're so happy and in our element again at Bar 3. And we're all so much more appreciative than we were pre-COVID. Of every client, of every movement, of every decision we're making. Like I was asked in an interview recently, what are you worried about in 2023? And I really thought about it. And I told her nothing. Because for the first time in 15 years, nothing, because I know we can do anything.
Yeah, you've been.
Yeah. And so nothing worries me.
The limits.
Nothing worries me anymore. I bet a lot of us feel that way. I mean, and a lot of us are still really struggling. I mean, the hangover and the tiredness and the exhaustion is real. And picking back up is hard. And so I try to just appreciate the little moments. It's not like we're crushing it. We're not pre-COVID numbers yet. But I just try to focus on the gratitude and the things that are working and the flow that is happening. And just that is also what I'm doing in my life is just pouring into things that work and feel good. And I'm really working on the practice of letting go the things that don't.
Well, I would argue that those are the biggest things that you could have on the horizon. All of this incredible recognition of what you have, what you've overcome, what the strength that you have within the strength that your company has to persevere, and the gratitude that you are experiencing, the flourishing that you're in, the letting go, all of these things. So beautiful. If that's what takes you into and through the next decade, I think you'll be in a really great space. So
I will say that the team, it's amazing when you go through constraints and hard times, innovation can happen. And we talked earlier about vigor and a kind of traditional exercise. The team has developed and is launching B3 Strength, which is a traditional strength training class, and B3 Cardio, which is a traditional cardio class infused with presence and mindfulness with the Bar 3 signature class philosophies. And so that's like a new emerging thing. So there is this sense of new now and change, which is really beautiful. It's not like we're going back to what we used to be pre-COVID. We've really evolved into something new. So it's pretty exciting.
That's so exciting. And that's the gift, right, of challenges and challenging times and constraint and what you've created and built from that. So yeah, absolutely. Phoenix rising from the ashes kind of metaphor. That's so perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people connect to you? Do you want to send them anywhere in particular?
Yeah, I truly am happy to connect on Instagram. I really do appreciate it for that reason. So Sadie Lincoln. And then Bar 3 has all the regular channels too, BARRE 3, connecting with our community. There are real people behind every post and every response that are amazing and love to hear from you. So Instagram, Facebook, our website, the usual places, LinkedIn, we're everywhere.
You're everywhere and all at once. Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for spending time with us. And we'll look forward to seeing what the future holds for Bar 3. And I know that with you at the helm and you continuing to do all the beautiful work that you're doing personally and internally, that all the moves there are going to be very meaningful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.